There, that's better. Well, good morning everyone, and welcome back to the ranch. Good to have you here today. Looks like it's going to be another beautiful day, though a tad toasty and a tad windy as well. We'll hope the wind doesn't affect the audio quality of this fine production too much. Anyway, good to have you here today. I appreciate you taking the time out. This video, similarly to most of my videos, is going to be another oddball video in that it's going to be kind of a clarification video about a 5-part series that Matt put up about this little dude right here, which was taken out of context despite the fact that Matt did his best to explain to people exactly what was happening with him. And he received a lot of really ugly comments on the video, and you know, doesn't seem to bother Matt, but does kind of bother Matt's dad a little bit. So anyway, we'll jump right into this. If you remember, a few months back I made a video called Matt Carriker'S First Car, and that video was about a trip that Matt and Mark and I, when they were young boys, made down to the border and purchased a 1968 Camaro. And I drove it around for years, and when Matt got old enough to drive it too, he drove it to school. And sometime between June of 2002 and 2003, Matt had driven it over to one of his friend's house, and the pivot ball on the clutch assembly sheared off right flush with the engine block. So I tried to remove the remnants of the bolt that were still in the block so that I could put a new one in there, but the more I tried, the bigger mess I made, and finally we had to pull the engine block out of the car. After pulling the engine out, it was pretty easy to see that the old girl was pretty tired, so we decided to send it and the transmission off to be rebuilt. And after pulling the engine and transmission out of the car, we decided the whole thing needed to be rebuilt. So my well-experienced work crew and I dove right in on a complete disassembly. And about the time we got the whole thing down to nuts and bolts, it was time for Matt to go to college, so everything got shoved to the back of the shop. And about the time Matt headed off for college, the engine and the transmission came back from the rebuilder, so we had it, and I just shoved it to the back of the shop with all the rest of the parts. And in another couple of years, Mark had gone to college too, and one summer when Mark came back from college, I noticed that he had been out at the shop busy for several nights in a row. And just out of curiosity, one day I walked out to the shop to see what was going on, and he goes, "Hey Dad, come out and look what I did." And he had put that brand new rebuilt motor and brand new rebuilt transmission into his Chevelle. And I didn't jump onto him because I thought any kid that can put an engine and a transmission into a car by himself deserves a pat on the back. So anyway, he enjoyed that, but that just kind of turned the pile of parts that used to be a Camaro into something a little bit less desirable. So after the boys had been in college for a while, it kind of became Deadsville around here. And one day I was out in the shop and I thought, today is the day. And I decided I was going to get aggressive on putting this old Camaro back together. So I cut the old rusty quarter panels and tail panel out of the car, welded new ones in, put a new set of fenders on the car, and started repairing all the dents, dings, and rust. And I didn't stop there. I decided to go ahead and paint the thing too. And the color choice, Arrest Me Red, of course. So after getting all the body work done and shooting the base coat, clear coat of Arrest Me Red on this car, I refurbished the fuel tanks, the brakes, the differential, and anything else that was obviously not perfect. And while all this was going on, I also located, purchased, and rebuilt a 396 cubic inch Chevrolet V8 engine, the type that this one came out of the factory with. The type with which this car came from the factory. So with the bodywork all done and the car completely repainted and all the running gear either new or rebuilt, it all got shoved to the back of the shop, and Project Camaro came to a halt for about 10 years. Check, 1, 2, 3. Boy, the wind's getting bad out here. I hope the audio on this is going to be understandable. Once again, I apologize for that. beyond my control. But as many of you friends know, I've always been a Corvette guy. I bought my very first Corvette in 1970 when I was in high school. And also later the Corvette thing became a passion not only for Matt and Mark, but also with my youngest son, Drew. They all caught the fever too. This is an identical picture of a car that I owned, a 1996 LT4 Corvette, one which Mark took to his senior prom. And before he got there, he and his little date, all decked out in their prom tuxedo and prom gown. Mark lost control of this car on an entrance ramp, did a 360 spin out, and wound up in a muddy bar ditch. And those kids didn't get to see most of their prom as they got that car out of the mud and spent most of prom night at the car wash trying to get it clean enough where old dad would not realize what happened. And if that wasn't degrading enough to the poor little white car, Matt and Meredith also humiliated it royally as the getaway car for their wedding. There was a little bit of a do that night, and those post-it notes bled their colors all over my car. I spent 2 weeks compounding and waxing that car to get it white again. Kids. And like I said, Corvettes have always been my passion, especially the older ones. They're a lot of work, but they have always been the coolest, sexiest looking cars to me of all the cars out there. So one day Matt was out here at the ranch and I told him that I had decided I was going to get rid of the Camaro. I was going to sell it. And he goes, "Dad, don't do that. Don't do that." And I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "I'd like to have that Camaro." And he said, "I'll buy it from you." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to sell it to you, but if you want it, you can surely have it." Because I have absolutely no interest in putting that much effort in that car to get it all back together. I've just totally lost interest in it. And I guess I had underestimated his connection to the car. But thinking back, it's just like my old gold Corvette. It was my first really fun car in school. And this was the first car that Matt drove to school. So with that in mind, I better understood the connection. So it wasn't very long before Matt came over with his trailer, picked up the Camaro and boxes of parts and carried the thing back to his shop. And at this time, he was just starting out to get busy on the resort. I said, "When are you going to get going on it, Matt?" And he said, "Well, right now, I don't have time. I'm just going to put it in the shop and store it there. I just want it there so nothing happens to it." And he said, "Probably in a couple of years, I'll start rebuilding it." And I said, "Well, that's cool." So to me, it just was a win-win thing all the way around. I got the Camaro out of my hair. I got room in my shop. He got a car he wanted, and everyone was happy. So about 6 weeks after Matt had come over and picked up this, at that time, bucket of bolts, I was out in the shop working, and I hear this rumble, 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 and I come out to see which one of my friends had come over, and lo and behold, here comes the Camaro, all put together. Matt in it, he pulls in the driveway, and you've seen the video, so you know how all that went. And after spending quite a while checking the car out and even taking it for a drive, Matt told me that he had been working on this for 6 weeks with Brandon out at Muscle Rod, and he had made a series of 5 videos that he was going to put up the next week on his channel. And he did that. But when Matt put this up on the channel, he made the clarification that I had already seen the car, I had already driven the car, and that he was launching a 5-part series on the whole event. But obviously, many of the viewers just weren't paying attention, or they just didn't get it. And even after Matt made it clear exactly what had transpired, there were many rude comments on that video criticizing Matt with some pretty ugly words, saying there's no way he could keep this a secret from his dad because his dad would have to be watching the channel. And I'm just like, dude, I've already driven the car before the series even started. So anyway, it was just kind of frustrating. It's hard to watch your kids take it on the chin. Didn't seem to bother Matt at all. You know, he just lets it roll off his back. He's been down this road a lot more, but just kind of when you see your kids getting whacked around a bit, it's irritating. And the worst part of it was Matt made it pretty clear I did not want this car. I was happy to see it leave. The last thing I wanted was for Matt to bring it back and give it to me. He even commented, if I wanted it, it was mine. But that's the last thing I want. One, it's a Camaro. I prefer Corvettes. 2, it was in my way. 3, I didn't have the money to do that to it. So, you know, very frustrating there. But basically, so many people said, oh, you didn't give him the keys. You didn't give him the car. We wanted to see you give him the car. And they got really rude about that. So it just irritated me because Matt had explained the whole thing to start with. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video today to set the record straight. 1, I already knew about it. 2, I don't want the damn thing. I've had it for 20 years. Yeah, frustrating. Anyway, guys, most of you know what I'm talking about, especially you parents, to see your kids, your innocent kids, doing something nice and they get slammed for it. I wanted to use this video to bring clarification and also wanted to show you some of the history leading up to this. Anyway, guys, that's it. The rant is over, I promise. Anyway, this is an awesome car, and let me just show you a little bit of it. You may not have seen it.
No. Hold on, girl, now wait just a minute. I've got something to say, you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for your feelings, but you have to admit I already do. Let's just break it down to you and me uptown, dancing all around till the disco ball pops. But I have to be me, and everyone can see your anger is misplaced, and I'm gonna tell ya, don't hate me 'cause I get attention. Don't turn me into what I'm not. I have to be me 24/7, and I ain't never gonna stop. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh, no, no, no. No, oh, oh, oh. And I ain't never gonna stop.
Well, folks, that's about it from out here on the ranch today. Thank you so much for being here and putting up with the wind noise. I'll do everything I can in editing to try to make it as tolerable as possible. But anyway, thank you so much for being here today. God bless you all. I look forward to seeing you next time, and I want you to always remember I love you. Bye-bye now. Looking good.
See ya, thanks.